All right, I am going to let's kick it off. So
Sounds good.
welcome everyone to the magic date 2222 for our OnTask podcast. I'll have Rob introduce our guest here in a minute, but we are going to focus on some of the key recruiting tactics that work and some of the experiences we had. And then our last webinar, we did have some screenshots on some reports that you can get out of OnTask to show accountability and some of the work that's going to be done. So we're going to touch on that again because it was, I think a lot of people found that helpful last time, and it's something that you really should be using in OnTask as well. So let's get started. So Rob, good to see you. Why don't you introduce our guest today and a little bit about what we're going to kick the meeting off with.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on again, Paul. I do love doing these podcasts every month. We have not Rob Sutherland. We have Rob Sutherland here, but down below we've got Devin Clark, who's the vice president of ProBroker Agency. As you can see, our backgrounds are on fleek here at PBA, but he's in the Superman. What is that?
Krypton.
Krypton. Nice.
That's it.
Right on, Devin. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk about what you do at ProBroker Agency?
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Paul, for having me on this podcast. It's always a pleasure talking with you guys, and I love being here. I'm the vice president of ProBroker Agency here, and I oversee dozens of our recruiters every single day. I see the thousands of calls, the hundreds of reports that go out every single day to our client base across North America. So I see what works over in New York and California, and how we can be the most effective for all of our clients. And let me tell you, using OnTask Recruiter is a huge part of that, and keeping ourselves organized and keeping our clients organized and getting all of our information in one single place. I think I've seen the difference since we started using OnTask Recruiter. It's been a little while now, and well, Paul will show you later with the charts. The results are remarkable. And how I feel about using, not using OnTask or using OnTask, it got me thinking a little bit about the history of how we used to make calls, right? And using old phone dialers. And I actually have an example of how we used to make calls here. I got my very first phone here, got my little cup, and this thing used to work pretty well. Hey Rob, can you pick up your phone?
I've got it right here.
Ring, ring, ring.
Oh, there you are. Wait, this reception is terrible, and I can't log anything into a spreadsheet from this. How am I going to keep track of my recruiting leads with something as antiquated as a paper cup? I mean,
you guys create this shtick overnight, honestly. So.
We've been working on it for a while.
Yeah, it comes naturally. But this using a cup and a string, that's what it feels like when you're not using OnTask. How are you keeping track of your leads? Right? How are you keeping track of the retention, right? Is everybody, who's been part of your recruiting team, do they know what's going on? Do they know the touches that have been sent out? Who's been given an email? Who needs to be followed up with? When is that meeting again? I can't remember. Again, as Paul will show you, there are, thousands of calls that go out, and it's extremely important that you and your team are on top of every single one of those leads. And that's what we do here with OnTask Recruiter and ProBroker Agency.
You couldn't have said it better, Devin, and we'll jump into the report. And this is a report everyone has with OnTask. And again, I think it's underutilized, but it gives you real insight as to which agents were called, how often were they called, if emails were sent, if texts were sent, and obviously if an appointment was booked. And then you can move those people along the pipeline. So you can move them from just prospecting to interested to finally closed, and now they're on your roster. So we'll jump in that. But real quick, Devin, so when you are overseeing your recruiters and they're making the calls, give us maybe 2 or 3 of the hot buttons that seem to get people engaged on the phone call, because ultimately you need that engagement on the phone to book an appointment for the managing broker to close the deal for the recruit. So do you have any insight on that?
Are you talking about scripts?
Script?
Are you talking about scripting a script? Literally?
There's no such
Oh,
thing
yeah.
as a generic script, so I'm sure there's some standard things, but what do you
Well, that's
see?
the
What do
thing,
you?
right? When
Yeah.
you're creating a script for a brokerage, every brokerage is different. Like you're not going
Right.
to use the same script to call from a 1,000-person Berkshire Hathaway office that you're going to use for a 2-person office that's with an independent brand. Those are two completely different calls to me, right? And so I think that's something that, regardless of what software we're using to do the calls, when we look at our executive recruiters that are available through OnTask as well, those recruiters are professionals in the industry and have been doing it for some time. So whenever we onboard a new client, I think one of the most important things we do is we do a meet and greet kind of like this, what we're doing with Paul, and we have Devin on there and the recruiter, and we sit there and we go over kind of some of the things that are the best talking points of the brokerage, figure out what are some of the hot buttons that maybe some of the brokerages that are in the area as well. Because let's say there's an office down the street where people aren't getting any support anymore and they're cutting back on fees and things like that, support, and costing more money, not getting any more return. There are going to be people in that neighborhood that'll have a different kind of offering. And so I always find when we're scripting a script for a brokerage, we've got to come up with 2 or 3 different ones, right? Because, you can call and congratulate realtors in your area for just doing a deal. That's a nice call to make that isn't pushy or salesy. You can call and thank them for doing a co-broker deal with one of your agents, which is a nice, friendly call to make as well that isn't salesy, right? You can call and invite them to events. A lot of our clients start having like an event now because everything's opened up. Call them and invite them down to a nice little get together rather than a pushy recruiting conversation that might not go anywhere, right? Like there's always different kinds of scripts to come across and to create. And I think the more that you can look at those on a regular basis, the more that you're going to have success in your recruiting campaign. It's like marketing. It's absolutely like marketing. You can't just use the same thing every year unless you're Remington. I bought the company.
And
that
even
type of
our
thing.
prior webinars, it isn't just about the commission splits and the best fees, right? So it's like you said, it's important to have that conversation up front with your recruiters, or if you hire pro broker through us, have that conversation with them, because an agent doesn't want to just talk about splits right away, right? Really, it boils down to how can you help that agent grow the business, which could be surrounding them with other like agents, could be your marketing, could be your training. Maybe you have some technology that they like. So you got to kind of figure that out and work with your recruiters or work with pro broker to come up with that script. Should I jump into a quick screen?
Yeah, because once you've got the script,
Okay.
once you've scripted a script, I mean,
All right, so let me
it's time
share
to
the
start
screen
reaching out.
here. So this first report I'm going to show you. So this is the report in OnTask on your dashboard. You can actually go to reports. You can set some dates and download this report. This is what the raw data actually looks like right here. And I just created a pivot table. We're trying to get our programmers to put this in automatically. But look at the power of this report. So for instance, right here, you see this is a particular agent. And over the course of, what is that? It looks like December through last week, this agent was called 13 times. Okay, that's how persistent. And these are calls actually made by pro broker here, which we'll get to in a minute. But you can see that this agent was called 13 times. Here's another one, this Lewis. They were called once and an appointment was set. And when an appointment is set, whether it's by you or your recruiter or pro broker, they schedule it with whoever's supposed to handle that appointment, like the managing broker. Ideally, that will pop up in the calendar. And I'm going to show you some of that here in a minute. I highlighted Michelle here because that's the one I'm going to show you. So here is an agent, 3 calls, and finally an appointment was set. And I'll get into what that looks like. These other tabs, I blackened out the other names here because this is an actual client, but this is Tanya from Pro Broker. You can see that in the course of, I think it's 3 months or 2.5 months, she set 27 appointments. I mean, those are 27 broker agents that want to listen to your pitch. I mean, that's good. I mean, even 1 or 2 of those that turns into a hire pays for the whole program itself. Look at how many calls she made. And then she sent texts. And here are some of the other individuals that have access to OnTask in the office. Now you're like, well, God, they didn't make that many calls. Well, that's probably because they hired Tanya to. But you would hope there'd be maybe a little bit more activity over here. And I don't know if that's because they're not logging the data into OnTask or not, but we'll get to that in a minute. But here's something you can use to say, is ProBroker doing their job? Is my recruiter doing their job? There's another report. If you just wanted to look at the total contacts made during a day, right? So like this particular day, you can see 21 calls were made. This day, end of January, you had 2 appointments were set and 20 calls were made. And it's not just a number. You can actually click on that 20 and find out which agents were called and which ones had the appointment. That's what this report is. So let me just jump to you. Once you log all this stuff into OnTask, which that's where the real power comes from. So here is Michelle Arnold, and you can see Tanya logs these calls, right? No answer. She finally heard from her, logged the call, and this agent wants to have a Zoom call. So she went and scheduled an appointment with the managing broker, whose name I blackened out. And you can see that in his or her dashboard, there's going to be pending activity or upcoming activity or overdue activity. This appointment was supposed to happen yesterday, which of course was President's Day. So you can say, well, I understand why it didn't happen, but this is queued up for you to call. And then all the information about Michelle is over here on the left side of her contact card. I circled it here because you'll see on another one or two that I'll bring up. If we have links, we try to go out automatically and find the links to like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter accounts. If we find the links, those will pop up down here and you can click on them for some more information, right? Volumes of stuff. So that's an example. Let me bring up one more here. Let's look up this one. Okay, here's another agent. You can see now we were able to find the social media links here, right? Brought in her Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter account. You click on these, this will automatically take you, or Devin or one of his recruiters at ProBroker, they can click on this, find out maybe just a little bit about that agent. And again, the whole goal there is to make the connection. You can see what her volume is if you want to put notes down here, but let's see what Tanya was able to do. First off, what you see down here is Rob mentioned this CoBroker, which is another module on us. So this person actually did a deal with an agent on the roster of this office, right? And you can see, and you can either automate this feature or you can personalize it or do a mix of both. When that agent that does a CoBroker, this email goes out that says it's a closing congratulations to that CoBroker. And then you can see Tanya started calling, boom, boom, boom. Finally got an appointment, scheduled it for Tuesday. She booked it in OnTask. Now, again, whether the appointment was had or not, it is here in OnTask for this recruiter or this managing broker to call. This was back in January 6th. I don't know if that's a lost opportunity, but nonetheless, it's all set up for you to call. Let me just jump into one more. What happens when you stop calling? So
here's my favorite graph. This is my favorite graph right here.
This is Rob's favorite graph because, you know, managing
It tells the
brokers
truth, man. It tells the truth.
Right. Managing brokers are busy, right? I mean, you got a lot on your plate.
And broker owners.
And broker owners to sit there and call after call after call after call takes time, and it takes focus. And, you know, you've got to be engaged because you have to have those scripts at the tip of your tongue there. So unless you're going to hire your own recruiter, which a lot of our clients do, but, you know, that means they're full-time employees with benefits, et cetera. It's not like you can just hire and let them go. With ProBroker, it's month to month, right? There's no HR issues you have to deal with. That's Rob's problem, not yours. And
happy to have it.
And they can make the calls. And as you can see with this one company, one of our clients, they were averaging 25 calls a day. And then boom, they looked at their year-end budget. You can see we stopped calls mid-January. They looked at their year-end budget and they wanted to reassess what they were doing. Now, my guess is in another month, they're going to come back, right? Because all these calls up here are generating some recruiting activity. And like I said, you only have to
Appointments.
hire a couple and the whole program pays for itself over the year, okay? So I think they're probably going to come back. I got a couple other
Okay.
screenshots on one other thing, but let me stop the share and maybe we can see if any of our guests here have some questions, or Bevan, if you have a few more comments on, again, the information we provide to help your recruiters have a meaningful conversation, or some other maybe key things, like.
Devin, why do you like
Yeah.
using a CRM? Why do you like using a CRM?
Well, everything's all in one place. That's the thing that I love the most about it, is I don't have to go through, 50 different Google Sheets to find the information that I'm looking for. Wait, Rob, did you make that call? Paul, did you follow up with John Smith? I'm not sure. Right, with OnTask, as you all just saw, it's all right there. It's all logged, and I really like that example that you used, Paul, because this is a real example. This is one of our recruiters with a real client. I actually spoke to this client this week, and they let me know that out of those 27 appointments that you saw on there, they have made a number of recruits, and they have another 2 people who are, going to be signing the papers this week, and they're opening up a new office. So that's
great.
just a quick testament of, this could have been any of our clients, and I just so happened to talk to these ones. So, it is absolutely effective. They love the calls. They love using OnTask because it makes things easy. You can see all the calls. You can see how many touches it actually takes, whether it's 5, 4, 13 calls, right, to get that appointment. But it is, but it is effective, right? And that is so critical, to the success of growth of any real estate office.
And the other thing that we didn't mention that is because we plug in broker metrics. I mean, you are able to pull in every single agent in your MLS, right? So you're not out there painstakingly paying for leads, or you're not trying to
scrape the internet
cards in.
Yes.
And all this. You are getting all these agents through our data connection with broker metrics. And then once you have that in there, as we've again have discussed in the past, but I encourage you to attend one of our Ask the Experts or just reach out to us. I mean, you can slice that list up multiple ways. Who's trending up? Who's trending down? What offices are they with? What is their current listings and closings? And then you can kind of zero in on your targets. And then once you do that, you can actually label them, and then you send them over, or you just label them, and then as a sub user on your account, a pro broker caller accesses that list, and you can say, I want you to focus on these 100 people or this 500 people, right? I've gone through and I've created my target recruiting list, and then you hand it off on them. And then through the reporting, you can find out, what kind of job they are doing and how effective. And then maybe you want to go back and create a new list, right? 3 months down the road. I mean, who knows? But that is out there to find contacts.
Well, and it's a unique tool to help develop your outreach messaging as well, right?
Mhm.
Because for sure, one of the things that I've noticed in using this and splitting the lists up and things like that on the back end for what we were talking earlier when we were scripting a script, when you identify those lists, like let's say recent closings, people have recently done a deal, co-brokers, things that people are trending up, people are trending down. You can tailor those scripts for those different lists, keep them in an easy place to reference. And then when one of our callers or your caller or yourself is dropping into OnTask to actually reach out to these people to start, pushing the ball forward, you've got different calls to make. I always think that recruiting, I mean, we all know that I recruited for Remax for 5 years before I started this company 10 years ago. Top recruiter in Canada. Best thing I did all day was my phone calls, setting appointments for myself and for the broker owners that I worked with. And I still to this day think it's one of the most powerful tools. But I love that there's another, factor with OnTask, that there's a bit of an email integration in there, and as well a text integration. Because sometimes, we'll set an appointment for a broker, and one of the first things I always say to one of our clients, as soon as one of our ladies or gentlemen books an appointment for you with an interested realtor, get them on a text chain. You can do that through OnTask. You can do that with your cell phone. But again, getting people to feel comfortable contacting you, knowing about their business will help you close sales that much better. Think of a car salesman or a shoe salesman or anybody that develops their product knowledge to a point where when they get that person who's ready to buy, it's a done deal, right? So the product knowledge for recruiting is the realtor's business. And that is going to be completely unique for pretty much every realtor you talk to. So again, having a system like this that can give you some back end stats and different things that are really great to use in your conversations, I think is just a no-brainer.
Right. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, if you don't have broker metrics, okay, we can still import a list. So if you're a trend graphics user or what is it, Realytics, is that the other one? You can download that list and we'll upload it. And you can upload it weekly or you can upload it monthly. And you still have all of the tracking and the features that you would have in a regular OnTask system that was plugged into broker metrics. The only thing you're not going to get is the current listings and closings and the co-broke information. So, but you can still use the tool very effectively if you have your data coming from somewhere else. So, perfect.
Awesome. Any questions from anybody today? Who's having trouble recruiting? Who's having some success? Okay, we've got
There
Joe
we
Cardenas.
go, from Joe Cardenas to all. And gentlemen, is there any drawback from having a third-party service making the call?
Well, if they were overseas and didn't know anything about real estate, yes. If they were one of our recruiters who lives in Canada and makes calls to the States for real estate brokerages all the time, no. I've actually hired people to do calls for us, for sales and things like that. People hire ISAs all the time. But ours are specific kinds of recruiters they work obviously independently. They're not in some big call center where there's a bunch of noise and keyboards clacking and things like that. They work from independent offices at home, much like a realtor would. And I think that, when you're looking at outreach, it's better to have a good look at what's being said first on the phone rather than, just kind of jump into it, and I always think though, that's the thing, right? When you're talking about using our service, we're an appointment setting service, right? We're not going to sit there and walk the person over the line. At the end of the day, you're going to be the one who's going to be doing the meeting and the call. And that could be on Zoom. It could be a phone call first, or it might be an in-person in your office, right? And so your first impressions with that recruiter are the most important thing. So really, when you're using an appointment setter, it's a lead generation tool for you. And I think that's a good system for people to start using. I mean, you start thinking about how much that gets done, how many times you get called by your cell phone company or your cable provider, or all these places that have all these ISAs that call from overseas. And what they do is they're paid by how much time they are on the phone, right? Completely the opposite of how our business works. Whereas we don't want to be on the phone for very long. We want to just book you appointments that turn into recruits,
Right.
as opposed to a call center that just gets paid on time. It's a different kind of system.
The other thing is, the two things really is the front end onboarding that you have with Pro Broker Associates to come up with the scripts and what your value proposition is important. Right, they're just not calling to say, hey, Rob Sutherland wants to meet you. No, they're calling on behalf of you. They're not saying, hey, this is Rob from Pro Broker, or this is Devin from Pro Broker. They are representing themselves as your assistant, so to speak, or your recruiter. So
Absolutely,
this is Devin calling from Keller Williams or from Remax, and then they go through your value proposition. The other thing is, in OnTask, we have click to dial, and that click to dial means we set up a phone number for you, and that phone number is a local number. So you're not getting a call from Canada, or you're not getting a call from Denver, Colorado, right? So if you're in Florida, you're getting a Florida prefix that shows up on this person's phone. So and that number is tied to you specifically, right? That's not anyone else's number. And as I said, when Pro Broker makes the calls, they're logging into OnTask as your sub user, and they're using that click to dial feature, which uses the local number. So if to answer your question the long way, yes, having a third party service calling you from overseas using a foreign number and not knowing anything about your business is not effective. But if you use a third-party service that has gone through your value proposition, is representing themselves as your recruiter, your hired recruiter or assistant, and
In-house. Yeah.
and using a local number, that overcomes a lot of that. So
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And thank you for asking that question. Another thing I'd really just like to mention is that, especially with us, it's a month to month, right? So you're not stuck on us for 2 years, for 1 year, right? We're dedicated every single day to getting those results for you, right? So your personal recruiter, it's the same person on the phone for you every single day. And if you're not getting those results, you will cancel. But a lot of our clients, most of our clients, 100% of our clients are happy with the services that we're getting because we get results. So you can see just exactly how well it's going from the graphs that we had.
right.
And that's why
we got another
we-
comment here.
Joe was saying something about
Joe,
CoBroker
he's
stuff.
like, thank you. So I guess we answered his question, and then he's like, he's going to concentrate on the co-broke agents, which is perfect for, I think, for the managing broker to handle, just because they just closed the deal with your agent. So you really have a strong connection there to make the call. And then, like you said, have a third party focus on everything else. So that group of 500 agents that you identify through the MLS, you can hand off to ProBroker with the script and stuff. And then as these agents, we also have a following feature, so you can follow like 100 agents too. But and we will tell you when those agents have a listing or closing. But with the co-broke, when they close a deal with someone on your roster, that also pops up as a reminder for you to reach out. And as I showed on that one screen, you can have a quick automatic email go out congratulating them, and then you can follow up with them with a more personal phone call, or you can set it the other way where it just says, hey, you have a co-broke here, and then you can script your own email if you want to do that. So that's a great way to handle that. So
CoBroker Calls, very powerful stuff. Also good to have your assistant reach out and do those as well. It's always a good thing. We got another question and answer here.
I think that's
this was how to learn to recruit with your system. Andrew, what would you like to learn about recruiting with the system? We were just showing you some screenshots about how to use it. Maybe we can have a more specific question than that.
Maybe I can answer that real quick, and we lost.
Maybe Andrew needs to drop into
Devin's back. So
there you go. Sorry about that.
So here we provide you, like I said, we provide you all the agents in your MLS, all the information about them. We have a personality thing in there that tells you if they've got a good LinkedIn account, what things are their hot buttons that get them excited, and what are the hot buttons that turn them off. We tell you what their recent listings are. We tell you what their current listings, what their recent closings are. If they did a deal with your agent, we bring in the co-broke. We bring in as much information as you possibly can about this agent to identify whether or not you think they're a fit for your office. And then in terms of the tools, like any good CRM, we've got emailing, we've got calendar appointments, we've got texting, we integrate with BombBomb. So if you want to do a video, we can do mass drip campaigns. We've got click to dial. And then we have these add-on services such as Rob, where we allow Rob's recruiters or Devin's recruiters to plug in our system. So all of their recruiting activity is tracked in one location for you. So that is the tools that we give you, but ultimately it's going to come down to you are going to, the old saying, you can bring a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. We can do everything we can to bring that agent to your office. But as we've heard in our prior podcasts, they want to hear from the boss. Right? They want to hear from the managing broker. Why do you want me in your office? So we can do all of these things, but the ultimate close is you. No, I don't know if that answers your question, but
maybe Andrew needs to attend one of the learning seminars that they got with OnTask. That type of thing, so that we can. I
think it's twice a month we do an Ask the Expert, right? Or Andrew, if you want, you can just do a one-on-one. That's no problem.
Yeah, for sure.
We can walk you through the system. And not only us, but if you wanted to do a one-on-one with Rob, you can do that too.
Yeah, Devin or I are happy to talk anytime about how we use the system and how the system can be implemented for your office. Maybe Paul can drop an email, my email or Devin's email into the chat here, and we can set up an appointment for you, and you can learn more about it that way for sure.
All right, Rob at what? You put it in here.
Rob at theprobroker.com.
And I'm Devin, that's DEVON at theprobroker.com.
All
Yeah.
right. And Devin at what?
Theprobroker.com, same as Rob's.
And
Yeah.
mine, I'll just put mine in here. Right, or you can actually even just go to our website.
Yep, or you can go
Perfect.
to theprobroker.com as well and book an appointment. We obviously take some of the consultations for OnTask and help them with talking about their products and stuff like that. So our calendar is right on that website.
All right.
Absolutely anytime. But we don't want to keep everybody too long. Is there
No.
any other questions?
Yeah, if there are no more questions, I mean, everyone have a great day. Stay warm. in
Yes.
this Arctic blast, and happy recruiting, and we will see you in March.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a
Awesome.
great day.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Joe.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Rob, for having me.